SportsBeat is brought to you by Ken Garth. We hear you.
Hello and welcome to SportsBeat on this Saturday. Yes, live sports has come to a stop, but SportsBeat will continue. JJ and Sam with you for the next half hour. We'll have the latest news on coronavirus cancellations, and we'll also hear from Utah State star Sam Merrill, his thoughts as he comes to grips with missing out on the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, you'll also hear from Mark Pope as the Cougars, who had expectations for a pretty high seed, also will not be getting a chance to experience March Madness, but we're going to begin with the Utah Jazz, where all of this really began.
Well, what a week it was for the Jazz. Rudy Gobert's positive test for the coronavirus sent shockwaves around the world. It led to the decision by pro leagues, the NCAA, and high school sports organizations across the country to suspend events.
The positive of it all, it has also created a heightened awareness of COVID-19 that will likely end up saving lives.
And the Utah Jazz on Saturday announced that Rudy Gobert is donating more than $500,000 to support both the Employee Relief Fund at Vivint Smart Home Arena and COVID-related social services relief in Utah, Oklahoma City, and within the French healthcare system. More than 800 part-time employees work events at Vivint Arena. We also heard this message from Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, what would you do if you were shut in, isolated from the general public because of the coronavirus? As the second confirmed case of COVID-19 in the NBA, Donovan Mitchell currently experiencing the solitude of this virus, but today he did want Jazz fans to know how he's doing.
What's up, everybody? Donovan Mitchell here. Just want to say thank you guys so much for your continued support, man. It means a lot to me. I feel fine. Things are going well. I'm just taking the proper precautions. You know, as was told to me by the health authorities, I got to stay in isolation. So I'm solo in here, playing video games all day, and can't wait to get back out there on the floor, man, play in front of the best fans in the world. Really miss playing in front of you guys, and I'll see you guys soon.
We can't wait to see him either. So that is positive news from both Donovan and Rudy. The Utah Jazz were at the center of the moment this past week that changed the way this country is reacting to the threat of the coronavirus pandemic and how we're dealing with it.
Yeah, Wednesday night's game against the Oklahoma City Thunder was going to be very important for both teams. Just one game separating those two for 4th and 5th place in the Western Conference standings.
But as we know now, that game was never played. Just seconds before the game was about to tip off, the Thunderhead medical staffer Donnie Strack ran onto the floor to tell officials something. Players were wondering what was going on. Soon players were sent to their locker rooms. 35 minutes later, the public address announcer told fans the game was postponed for unforeseen circumstances. Within the hour, news broke that Rudy Gobert tested positive for coronavirus. Both teams, staff, and media had to stay at the arena.
58 tests ended up being administered for COVID-19 to the Jazz and their staff. The results came the following morning. That's when the Jazz learned that one returned with a positive result. Star guard Donovan Mitchell diagnosed with COVID-19. The rest of the Jazz players, coaches, and staff that made the trip to Oklahoma City were all allowed to return to Utah and self-quarantine with their negative tests, while Rudy and Donovan made the trip back on a separate flight.
Rudy issued a statement on Instagram Thursday saying, "I've gone through so many emotions since learning of my diagnosis, mostly fear, anxiety, and embarrassment. The first and most important thing is I would like to publicly apologize to the people that I may have endangered. At the time, I had no idea I was even infected. I was careless and make no excuse. I hope my story serves as a warning and causes everyone to take this seriously."
Donovan also posted to Instagram and said, quote, "We are all learning more about the seriousness of this situation. Hopefully people can continue to educate themselves and realize that they need to behave responsibly both for their own health and for the well-being of those around them. I appreciate the authorities in Oklahoma who were helpful with the testing process and everyone from the Utah Jazz who have been so supportive."
Within the hour of Rudy Gobert testing positive coronavirus, the NBA made the decision to suspend the season until further notice. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver explains the league's decision.
This hiatus will be most likely at least 30 days. I mean, and we don't know enough, as you've all said, to be more specific than that, but we wanted to give direction to our players and teams and to our fans that this is going to be roughly at least a month. But then the question becomes, is there a protocol, frankly, with or without fans in which we can resume play. I think we quickly agreed that this should not, of course, be a business decision. We should be listening to the public health experts, Oklahoma City, and the team doctors. They conferred and fairly quickly decided we should not be playing. And then so, you know, I think I officially canceled the game, and immediate issue was clearing the building of fans and not alarming anybody.
Rudy Gobert received a lot of blame from people, and according to ESPN NBA reporter Adrian Wojnarowski, that finger-pointing was also coming from the Jazz locker room.
Yeah, Woj reported that, quote, Jazz players privately say that Rudy Gobert had been careless in the locker room, touching other players and their belongings. Now a Jazz teammate has tested positive.
Now, I kind of had an issue with this because there's no context provided in that report whether Rudy was careless before or after testing positive, which led to more hate and blame toward Rudy, and it also created a narrative that there's a rift between Rudy and other players in the locker room. Woj went even further into detail on SportsCenter.
I'm thinking about this Utah situation in your tweet today, and then the specific words that Donovan Mitchell uses about, like, basically it's like, it doesn't seem like this is great between Gobert and Mitchell. I mean, is that an astute observation?
That is an astute observation, Scott. And the Jazz are fortunate that they don't have to get back together and start playing games again right now. There is a lot of work to do to repair relationships, not just between Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, but others in the locker room. There's a lot of frustration with Gobert. He certainly was apologetic today, but this is going to test. They've got great leadership in Utah. Dennis Lindsey, Justin Zanuck, Quinn Snyder, their coach, and in that locker room, it's going to be a test for all of them to get this team back on track if and when they return to playing this season.
So the national narrative spreads that Rudy is an idiot, basically, that carelessly spread this virus, and there's a rift between Rudy and Donovan and other players on the team. We can't interview the players right now, so there's no way yet to know how they really feel about all of this. But Zach Lowe of ESPN offered this perspective on his podcast.
I feel for him. He's going to be stigmatized forever for this. He was callous. He took this too lightly. He admitted his mistake, and I thought a pretty artful way. He obviously feels guilty. He feels embarrassed. You know, Woj was reporting yesterday that there's a rift now between Gobert and the rest of the team. You know, my feel from the Jazz and talking to people there is that I think once everyone takes a deep breath, that will be okay. Look, we've all done dumb things, and all of us were taking this lightly, and I can tell you that Gobert is not the only player I saw in the last 10 days or 2 weeks who was sort of similarly making light of the threat of this. And by the way, we don't know if Donovan Mitchell got it from Rudy Gobert. His test just came back first.
We are now joined by Sarah Todd, Utah Jazz beat writer for the Deseret News. Sarah was in Oklahoma City Wednesday night and covered one of the craziest stories in NBA history. And Sarah, you became part of the story as well, something no journalist wants to do, but it happened. First off, you were one of those tested for coronavirus in OKC. Can you give us an update on how you're doing?
Yeah, doing great. I tested negative, and as long as I don't develop symptoms during my 2-week quarantine, then it's all going to look good. So I'm just staying isolated to prevent any possible spread of anything.
That's great news. Can you describe and take us through what that night was like for you personally in Oklahoma City?
Yeah, it was one of the most surreal nights I've ever had, especially in a professional capacity. It was very weird. At first, there was a lot of chaos sort of on the court before the players walked off. We didn't understand why they were walking off. We were told that the game, we were waiting for league confirmation for the game to start. I've been covering the NBA for 8 years, and I've never heard that before, so we knew something different was happening. And, you know, we try to get on the phones, text, or call our sources within the team and the league, and no one was saying anything. And so, again, that's another red flag that something is very different, because usually you can get people to answer you or tell you that they'll answer you soon. Yeah. And then once the news came out that it was Rudy Gobert that had tested positive for the COVID-19, then it became, okay, well, I'm in direct contact with this guy on a daily basis. So do I need to be concerned? And there was a lot of non-communication for a few hours, and then eventually we got word that us, the traveling writers, would be tested with the rest of the team. And the night never ended. It was a sleepless one.
What time did you get out of the arena and get somewhere where you could get some rest?
I got out of the arena a little after 1 a.m., and then went to a hotel and started writing and fielding interviews. And so I didn't sleep until the next evening when I actually made it back to Utah.
You did interviews in the middle of the night?
Yeah, did interviews in the middle of the night, wrote my story, made sure that got published somewhere around 5 in the morning, and then it was just a continuous flood of information. Found out a little after 9 a.m. local time in Oklahoma that I'd tested negative, and then waited to get word on how we were going to get home, which ended up being on the charter flight with the team.
Well, we're glad you're back safe and you handled that as a true pro. After Rudy Gobert tested positive for the coronavirus, he became a target of a lot of hate and a lot of vitriol, a lot of finger pointing, maybe even from his own teammates, according to Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN. Do you think this narrative that formed around Rudy is fair?
I do not. I don't think that there's any sort of rift within the team that's not basketball related, and obviously right now basketball is taking a sidestep to everything else that's clearly more important. And, you know, in regards to Rudy getting any sort of vitriol online or from fans for, you know, potentially spreading this, it's spreading everywhere. It was only a matter of time that it was going to happen, you know, for someone within the public eye. And I'm not mad at the guy. I mean, he has coronavirus. He's dealing with his own stuff right now. And I just think that it's a little bit silly that, you know, we're pointing fingers at him when possibly him testing positive potentially could have saved a lot of people, because it started a domino effect of shutting down a lot of huge gatherings and keeping people away from each other.
Another thing Jazz fans are wondering about, Adrian Wojnarowski also went on SportsCenter and reported that there's now a rift between Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, and maybe even other players on the roster in Rudy. Is there anything you've seen or heard as a beat writer that would indicate that there's truth to that?
I have not heard anything that would indicate that there's truth to that. Any tension outside of anything that's actual basketball related, and those are normal tensions that happen within the season or within any professional sport. And I mean, obviously there's going to be some frustration for anyone that is positive or maybe in danger for being tested positive for this virus, but I have no information and nothing that would give any credence to the fact that there is rift because of this.
Well, when the NBA returns, we'll have a lot of questions for Rudy and Donovan. Sarah, we're happy you're doing well. Thanks for sharing your story with us, and hope to see you back in the building and back at the arena soon.
Thanks a lot for having me on, guys.
I love these young men.
Up next, BYU head coach Mark Pope gets emotional about the abrupt end of the Cougars season, missing out on March Madness and a great season for the Cougars, and another NBA player has tested positive for the coronavirus.
Well, another NBA player has tested positive for the coronavirus. Detroit's Christian Wood, who the Jazz played last Saturday, has tested positive for COVID-19, according to Shams Charania. This is the third positive test in the NBA.
Now, the ripple effect of Rudy's positive test made its way through every major professional sports league as they canceled events and postponed seasons.
Yeah, the NCAA was quick to follow suit, canceling all winter and spring championships, including the NCAA tournaments. This is the first time in the history of college hoops that the tournament has been canceled. The tournament has been held every year since it began in 1939, and the women's tournament has run every year since it began in 1982. Mark Pope, he was pretty emotional knowing this was it for this year's team.
I'm not an expert on the spread of disease. I'm certainly not an expert on COVID-19, and you know, if it was at all possible to you know, have this tournament safely or to postpone it with the potential of having it safely, you know, I think there's nobody in the world that wouldn't be in support of that.
Mark, what should the NCAA do for seniors on these winter teams in regards to maybe their eligibility? I mean, do you feel like they should get an opportunity to maybe get another year back?
Clearly, I have to be careful with the way I say things. I do think that there's been some momentum in the last few hours from all different corners, because I think there's other programs that are feeling the same thing that we are. You know, this is, you know, we're certainly in uncharted territory. The NCAA has never had with a pandemic before. This team is, you know, I'll tell you, I believe this is true. there was nothing that could stop this team this year. It wasn't suspensions or injuries or a coaching change or a roster overhaul or adversity or tough losses or incredibly difficult schedule. The one thing that stopped this team this year was a pandemic, right? It was. I do believe this group was so committed. There was nothing that was going to be able to stop them besides something otherworldly. And so, you know, if I do suspect that I have a large group of seniors on this team that have fought so hard for this, and they still got a boatload of fight in them. And if the NCAA, saw fit to grant them another shot at this, which seems, potentially like it's the only just or fair thing to do, then I think we'd have some guys that would be really, really, really excited about.
When you look back on 2019-20 in your first year at BYU, what ultimately are you going to take with you, either in your heart or in your head, moving forward, that you'll always think of when you think of this year?
Well, I mean, that's easy. It's not even close. Like, I love these young men. It's an extraordinary thing when it's an extraordinary and humbling thing when young men give you when they're willing to give you their trust, and that is it's a real gift as a coach that you rarely it's the building blocks and foundations of a group that can be really special. And these guys are unbelievably generous to each other and willing to fight for each other, and they've been unbelievably generous to us as a staff. And it just has happened way too fast. Like, we're supposed to have some more time to evaluate everything and soak it in and figure it out. And we'll be able to do that in the coming weeks. But it's no doubt. If there's one thing that's extraordinary about these teams, is just the love that we feel for each other, between these players and each other, and certainly me as a coach and these players.
Well, one of the greatest players in the history of the Mountain West Conference, Sam Merrill, won't be wearing a Utah State uniform again. Hear his reactions to the cancellation of the tournament. That's coming up next. He'll go down as one of the greatest players in the history of Utah State basketball, and the stage was set for Sam Merrill's collegiate career to come to a close on the national stage of the NCAA tournament. A chance for him to have his one shining moment along with the Mountain West champion Aggies, but then the decision to cancel the tournament, officially bringing the Sam Merrill era to a close. It was an emotional moment when he was told the news.
We were to the point where we were expecting it at some point, just didn't know when. So Coach had just sent us a text that said he was going to modify practice, just under the assumption that this was probably going to happen, that we were just going to do all skill work. And that for some of us it may be hard, and for some of us, I'm assuming he was talking to the seniors, that we would probably be even wondering why we were even at practice. But yeah, it was a tough moment for sure. After hearing that we were going to play without fans, to me it almost seemed like it would be better just to cancel it. But still, having anticipated it, it was a gut-wrenching moment for sure. Coach Smith spoke to us for a few minutes, and it was, like I said, very emotional. He mentioned how proud he was of us and how sad it was for all of us, and opened up the floor for anyone to speak. Only a couple coaches spoke, just because I think all of us players were too emotional to be able to say anything. And then Coach said, for those that weren't seniors, there was just so much uncertainty on what the plan would be going forwards. A lot of teams didn't get a finish, and for all those teams, you sit there and wonder what if. So I'm definitely in support of it. For me, I'm 24 years I'm going to be 24 in a couple months. I'll be graduating. Feel like I've given it everything I had to Utah State. So for me, I feel like it's time to move on. But like I said, I would definitely be in support. And I think that would be great for those that do feel like there's something left unsaid. For me and Diogo and Abel and Justin and Brock, those guys that were on those two previous teams, we really felt like we could do something, that we could be successful here. And we put in the work and have obviously had two great years, two of the best years that Utah State has had. Knowing what we know now, it's a perfect way to go out for me personally and for us as a team to beat one of the best teams in the country and win a conference championship and be able to celebrate together. Like I said, we wish there was more, but it's a perfect way.
All right, welcome back. I don't think there's a football coach in the country that is tougher than Ed Orgeron. Well, you know what? Maybe Kyle Whittingham could give him a good fight, but still, Coach O is a tough dude and now a national champion.
Yeah, he's given us the game plan now to fight the coronavirus.
For every winning team, a key to success is learning the playbook. That's true in football, and it's also true as we take on the coronavirus. The spread of the coronavirus is a serious matter, but there's a game plan for keeping residents as safe as possible. Everyone has a role to play as we face this challenge together. Cover your cough with your elbow like this. Wash your hands thoroughly, a full 20 seconds. If you're sick, stay home. If you think you should be tested, phone your health provider first. Avoid close contact with anyone who's sick. Protect your at-risk family members, including the elderly. If you're not at risk, take care as you go about your daily business. Get the facts now from coronavirus.gov and your state health department. We're all in this together. Let's team up to protect our health.